The Night Stalker, The Haunting Story of Richard Ramirez. Part 1, Origins of a Monster. On February 29, 1960, in El Paso, Texas, a child was born who would one day terrorize the streets of Los Angeles. His name was Ricardo Leyva Muñoz Ramirez, later known simply as Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. He was the youngest of 5 children in a poor Mexican-American family. His father, Julian Ramirez, was a strict and often violent man who had once been a police officer in Juárez before moving his family north. His mother, Mercedes, worked in a boot factory, where exposure to toxic chemicals during pregnancy allegedly affected Richard's health. From an early age, Richard showed signs of trauma. He suffered from epileptic seizures until his adolescence. His father's temper often exploded into physical abuse, and Richard frequently ran away from home, sleeping in cemeteries to escape the chaos inside his house. But what truly shaped young Richard wasn't just his troubled family. It was his cousin, Miguel Mike Ramirez, a Vietnam War veteran. When Richard was only 12, he spent hours listening to Mike describe, in graphic detail, the torture and mutilation he inflicted on Vietnamese women during the war. Mike would even show him Polaroids of decapitated heads, raped women, and soldiers posing with corpses. One evening, right in front of Richard, Mike shot his wife in the face after an argument. She died instantly. Richard was deeply affected, but strangely, he didn't flinch. Instead, he grew fascinated with the mix of sex and violence his cousin had glorified. This was the seed of something monstrous. As a teenager, Richard developed obsessions: pornography, drugs, and Satanism. He admired the power and fear Satan represented, and he began to see violence as a form of freedom. While most boys his age dreamed of girls and cars, Richard fantasized about killing and torturing. He began breaking into houses, stealing from people while they slept. He discovered he loved the feeling of being inside someone's private space, unnoticed, powerful. Part 2, The Birth of the Night Stalker. In 1978, Richard dropped out of high school and moved to Los Angeles. He was homeless for periods, living in seedy hotels around Skid Row, supporting himself through theft. But soon, stealing wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted fear. He wanted death. On April 10, 1984, 9-year-old Mei Leung was found murdered in the basement of a hotel where Ramirez was living. She had been beaten, raped, and strangled. At the time, police didn't link it to him. But this was Richard's first known murder. Over the next year, his crimes escalated. Unlike most serial killers, Richard had no specific type. He attacked men, women, children, and the elderly. Victims ranged from 6 to 83 years old. Sometimes he raped, sometimes he killed, sometimes both. His methods were chaotic: knives, guns, strangulation, blunt objects. This randomness made him unpredictable and harder to profile. But there were patterns. He often broke into houses late at night, sometimes entering through open windows, sometimes through unlocked doors. He seemed to believe the night itself was his ally, that darkness gave him power. In crime scenes, he often left satanic symbols, such as pentagrams, drawn on walls or even carved into victims' bodies. One detail rarely mentioned: Ramirez was obsessed with teeth. He had extremely poor dental hygiene, rotting teeth that gave him a foul odor. Police later noted that survivors often remembered the smell of his breath, describing it as like death itself. Dentists would eventually play a role in identifying him. By 1985, Los Angeles was paralyzed. Every night, as people locked their doors, a sense of dread spread. The Night Stalker was out there, slipping into homes, killing at random. Newspapers described the killings as satanic rituals. Parents kept children inside, gun sales skyrocketed, and the city lived in constant fear. Part 3, The City in Fear. The Los Angeles summer of 1985 was like something out of a horror film. The city was in the grip of panic. People nailed windows shut, bought guard dogs, and slept with weapons under their pillows. Every sound at night seemed suspicious. Ramirez, meanwhile, reveled in the chaos. He followed media coverage of his crimes and enjoyed the terror he spread. Unlike many killers who sought secrecy, Richard embraced fame. He wanted the city to know the Night Stalker was out there. What many people don't know is that Ramirez was extremely sloppy compared to other killers. He often left fingerprints, shoe prints, and even witnesses. But his sheer randomness made police chase false leads. In one case, he abducted a 6-year-old girl, molested her, and then released her hours later. When police asked her to describe her attacker, she said he had teeth like a vampire. The break in the case came from a shoe print. Investigators found a unique, obvious sneaker print at several crime scenes. Only 6 pairs of that model had been sold in Los Angeles at the time. This detail began tightening the net around him. By August 1985, his reign of terror reached a climax. On August 24th, after another attempted attack, witnesses identified his car, a stolen orange Toyota. Inside the vehicle, police found a fingerprint that matched Richard Ramirez. The face of the Night Stalker was finally known. His mugshot was released to the public. Part 4. Capture and Courtroom Horror. The end of Ramirez's freedom came not from the police, but from ordinary citizens. On August 31st, 1985, Richard boarded a bus in Los Angeles. To his shock, passengers recognized him from the newspapers. Someone shouted, "That's him. That's the Night Stalker." Panic broke out, and Richard fled. He ran through the streets, trying to carjack vehicles, but residents chased him down. A group of angry locals beat him with metal rods and restrained him until police arrived. The Night Stalker had been caught, not by officers, but by a furious community that refused to let him escape. His trial was a circus. Ramirez entered the courtroom with pentagrams drawn on his hands, flashing them at cameras, shouting, "Hail Satan." He smiled at victims' families, showing no remorse. At one point, he told reporters, "Big deal. Death comes with the territory. See you in Disneyland." During the trial, women lined up to see him. Shockingly, Ramirez developed a cult following among young women who sent him love letters, nude photos, and even proposed marriage. One woman, Doreen Leoe, eventually married him in 1996 while he was on death row. The jury found him guilty of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries. He was sentenced to death in California's gas chamber. When the sentence was read, Richard smirked and said, "No big deal. Death always comes with the territory. I'll be waiting for you." Part 5. Legacy of Darkness. Ramirez never showed remorse. He spent over 2 decades on death row at San Quentin State Prison, where he continued receiving fan mail. Inmates feared him, not because of his physical strength, but because of his aura. His belief in Satan gave him a chilling presence. A little-known fact, Richard enjoyed listening to AC/DC, particularly the song Night Prowler, which police later linked to his crimes. The band was horrified when newspapers associated their music with Ramirez's killings. Despite his death sentence, Richard never faced the gas chamber. Instead, he died in 2013 at the age of 53 from complications related to B-cell lymphoma. Some reports suggested he was also suffering from hepatitis C and other illnesses caused by years of drug abuse. Even in death, he remained an enigma. Some former guards claimed his prison cell contained strange drawings, satanic symbols, and letters filled with cryptic messages. To this day, he has become a dark figure in popular culture, featured in books, documentaries, TV shows, and even horror series. But perhaps the most disturbing legacy of Richard Ramirez is not just his crimes, but the reminder that evil can take many forms. Unlike other serial killers who had patterns or motives, Ramirez thrived on chaos. He killed anyone, anywhere, anytime. His motive was fear itself,